It is the spring of 2005. In a shipyard in La Rochelle, on the west coast of France, a blind man in his 90s is dying, and he has arranged something almost no founder ever does. He hands 12,000 of his 13,000 shares in the company to the people who build his boats. His name is Henri Amel, and the yachts that carry his name are still called the best Bluewater cruisers ever built. Most founders cash out at the end. He did the opposite. His real name was not Amel. He was born Henri Tonnet in 1913. As a young man, he ran a coach workshop in Paris, and in his spare hours, he was already building small boats. Then the war came, and it took pieces of him. He was wounded, he lost the sight in one eye, and over the years the other eye began to fail too, until for long stretches of his life he was, for all practical purposes, blind. And yet he carried an iron will that never once let go. Losing his sight did not soften him, it focused him. Most men would have called that the end of a boat-building dream. He did the opposite. During the war, he had seen something that stuck with him. The Allied invasion forces floated huge structures on the water, caissons built not of steel or wood, but of cloth soaked in polyester resin. Everyone else saw a wartime trick. He saw the future of boat building. While the rest of Europe was still shaping hulls out of oak and teak, this half-blind Frenchman decided the future was plastic, and he became one of the first people in Europe to build serious boats out of fiberglass. At a time when most sailors thought the whole idea was a joke, he changed his name to Amel during the Resistance and never changed it back. His first real attempt, a little yard in Marseille building a boat called the Super Sport, went well for the boat and badly for the business. It failed. He was not a young man anymore. He could barely see, and his first company was gone. So in 1964 he tried again. He took over a struggling polyester workshop in La Rochelle, and he inherited something more valuable than the building. About 40 employees came with it, one of whom was a young draftsman named Jacques Carteau, who would become his eyes, his right hand, and eventually the man who ran the whole company. The following year, the yard officially became Chantiers Amel, and in 1966 he launched his first ketch, a boat called the Euros. A blind man, betting everything on a material nobody trusted, in a business that had already beaten him once. That is where the legend actually starts. It nearly ended before it began. On a February morning in 1968, the workshops burned to the ground. Everything. A man who had already lost a company, an eye, and most of his sight now watched his second yard turn to ash. And again, he did the opposite of quit. He rebuilt a few miles away in a district called Périgny, and every Amel yacht from that day to the ones being launched right now has been born in that same place. Out of the fire came the discipline that made the name. Most builders chase the market, running 6 or 8 models at once. Amel did the opposite. He built one boat at a time, refined for years, sold, and only then replaced. And he did not laminate a hull here and a deck there and bolt them together. His boats were built as a single molded piece, the yard weaving its own fiberglass cloth, the hull and deck and bulkheads bonded into one watertight shell. If you have ever heard an owner say an Amel feels like it was carved from one block, that is why. It was also a family firm in the truest sense. His own daughter, Beau Deal, ran the company's Mediterranean base for close to 20 years, and the men on the factory floor tended to stay their entire working lives. When people later called Amel a family, they meant the 100 or so hands who came to treat his standard as their own. He settled early on the ketch, 2 masts instead of 1, because splitting the canvas into smaller pieces meant no single sail was ever too big for one tired pair of hands. And he named his boats like poetry, for the winds and islands of the world. the Maramu, the Sharky, the Mongo, the Santorin. Whether you bought the small one or the large one, you got the same DNA underneath. He was not selling you a size, he was selling you a philosophy. But here is the part that tells you who he really was. In 1975, Henri Amel took one of his own boats, a 16-meter yacht called the Meltem, and set off across the Atlantic to the West Indies, through the Panama Canal, and out into Polynesia, because he had promised to personally deliver her to a friend in Tahiti. He was nearly blind, and he crossed an ocean to keep his word. And while he was out there, sailing his own product in the real world, he was designing his next boat over long-distance radio with Carto back in France. I will be honest with you, that is the exact moment a boat builder earns my trust. When he is willing to cross an ocean on his own product with his own life. He did not design boats from a drawing office. He sailed them, feeling every fault through the soles of his feet and the palms of his hands, then went home and fixed what the sea had shown him. That same drive is what turned a small French yard into a legend. Hold on to it, because it is about to build the most respected cruising boat on the water. Everything he learned went into the boats as equipment no one else was fitting. Furling systems he engineered himself, so the sails rolled away at the turn of a handle. A retractable bow thruster, so one aging person could dock a 50-foot yacht alone. Watertight bulkheads, so a hole in one compartment does not sink the whole. He was not building a sailboat. He was building a system for one couple or one person to cross the whole world and come home. And if you have ever owned a boat like that, one that owed you nothing and that you trusted completely, do me a favor and subscribe, and tell me in a comment where you are watching from and what she was, because those stories are the whole reason this channel exists. That system reached its peak in a boat first launched in 1988 and perfected through the year 2000, the Super Maramu. If you have spent any time around serious ocean sailors, you know the name, and you know the look it gets. She is a 52-foot ketch, built around a hard center cockpit that sits the crew in the safest, driest part of the boat. From that one protected station, a single person can roll out the headsail, the mainsail, and the mizzen at the push of a button, start the engine, retract the bow thruster, and take the whole yacht to sea without ever going forward into danger. Below the waterline, Amel divided the hull into 8 sealed compartments behind 4 full-height watertight bulkheads and rated her Category A ocean, cleared for the worst the open sea can offer, and she left the factory ready to sail away. Where most builders sold you a bare hull and a long options list, an Amel came complete. The generator, the water maker, the heavy ground tackle, the electric winches, all of it standard. The whole design followed one hard rule. A couple had to be able to run her even if one of them was hurt, and the fit one should never have to lift much more than about 50 pounds or leave the cockpit to work the boat. He was designing for 2 people getting older together in the middle of an ocean, 1,000 miles from help. Now think about who designed that. A man who could not see built the boat you can sail without looking, where every critical control falls under your hand in the one safe spot on deck, because he had spent his life learning a boat by touch. His blindness was not something he overcame and set aside. It was designed into the product. The Super Maramu is what a boat looks like when the man who built it navigated the world through his fingertips. The world noticed. In the year 2000, the American magazine Cruising World named the Super Maramu 2000 its Boat of the Year, over 27 other yachts. Roughly 245 of that final version were built, part of nearly 500 Super Maramus scattered across every ocean on Earth. Couples in their 60s who had never crossed an ocean bought them and crossed 3. One young crew sailed one around the world for about 10 years and filmed the whole voyage, and a generation of newer sailors met the brand through them, under the name SVD Loss. And here is a thing that almost never happens with boats. A good Super Maramu from the late 1990s can still sell today for close to what she cost brand new. New boats lose half their value leaving the dock. Amel built the rare kind that does not. Under the hull sat a single, accessible diesel, an early Perkins on the first boats, later a Yanmar. In an engine room, a grown adult can stand up inside and reach every filter and belt by hand. That is not an accident. A blind man does not tolerate a component he cannot find by feel. Now, let me be fair, because you have sailed enough to know better than a brochure. The Super Maramu is not a light boat, and she is not a fast one. She is heavy. She carries a lot of gear a purist would call complication, and she is not for everyone. If you want a nimble weekend racer, this is the wrong boat. What she is a boat that gets you there and gets you home. With two people who are not as young as they used to be, there is a reason her owners are some of the most loyal in all of sailing. Here is where every story like this one usually breaks your heart. You know the pattern, because you have watched it happen to almost every brand you ever loved. A founder builds something honest over a lifetime. He gets old, and then one of two things ends it. Either the family sells to a corporation that keeps the badge and quietly cheapens everything behind it, the thinner glass, the cheaper hardware, the boat built to a price instead of a standard. Or the founder dies and takes the knowledge with him, and the company coasts on the name until the name means nothing. By the early 2000s, Henri Amel was very old, and his company was rolling straight toward that fork in the road. And understand what was at stake. The whole value of an Amel was the standard in the founder's head, a standard he enforced by walking the floor and running his hands down a new hull until he found the one flaw a sighted man had missed, and then making them redo it. That is not something you can write into a manual. When a man like that dies, the standard usually dies with him. Every reason the Super Maramu was special was also a reason it should not have survived its own founder. So the question hanging over that shipyard was simple and brutal. When the blind man is gone, does the soul go with him? On the 12th of April, 2005, days before his 92nd birthday, Henri Amel died. And here is what he had done first. He owned 13,000 shares in the company he had built twice, once from nothing and once from ash. He gave 12,000 of them to his employees, the people who laminated the hulls, who wired the panels, who had been his eyes for 40 years, woke up owning the yard. He did not sell out to a corporation to be squeezed for a quarterly number. He made the builders the owners, the one arrangement on earth where the people in charge have every reason to protect the standard instead of cutting it, because now it is their name on the hull too. That single decision is why this story does not end the way the others do. After 2005, the boat stopped being named for winds and islands and simply took the name Amel, carried forward by the crew who inherited his company. And they kept his discipline, one careful boat at a time. The yard went on to build the Amel 50 and the Amel 60, and both were named European Yacht of the Year, more than a decade after the man who set the standard was in the ground. The plant in Périgny is still there, still building, still owned in large part by the people who do the work, and the used market is still full of 30- and 40-year-old Amels out crossing oceans, holding their value, handed from one careful owner to the next. That is the truest proof of what he built. So, how does a man who cannot see build the boat the whole world trusts to cross oceans alone? He builds it by touch, refusing every part he cannot find with his hands and every flaw he can feel, until the boat becomes an extension of the one sense he had left. And why didn't it die with him? Because he understood that the real threat to a great boat was never the sea, It was the boardroom, and he beat it the only way anyone ever has, by handing his life's work to the people who would rather build it right than sell it out. Most men build a company to sell it. Henri Amel built one that could never be sold out. If you put me on this dock and told me to untie one boat and take my own family across an ocean tomorrow, I know which line I would throw off first, and it would have 2 masts and a blind man's name on the stern. There is one more story that belongs right next to this one. On the other side of Europe, in Sweden, another family did the same near-impossible thing. They built some of the best boats in the world, and they refused for generations to let anyone ruin them. I made a full video on the story of Hallberg-Rassy, and it is the perfect companion to the one you just watched. You do not have to go looking for it. It is on the screen right now. Just click it, and I will see you inside.